In this video, I'm going to give you the biggest thing that I wish that I knew about fitness as a former Green Beret, and it has to do with the aerobic energy system. The Army has so long just crammed for endurance events. When it comes to the PT test, they start doing, some running 3-4 weeks out, if that. When it gets close to schools like Ranger School, Airborne School, they do the same thing. And even some people don't fully appreciate how important aerobic endurance is for SFAS, the selection to become a Green Beret. And then they do the same thing on deployments. In fact, they neglect endurance training on deployments, oftentimes due to not their fault, but they just have limited access to long distance roads or trails so that they can do running and rucking. And maybe they have very limited gym access with just a treadmill or two that's just not enough to spread around. But the real problem just comes from the culture of the Army. And the way that it treats endurance training is usually either as punishment or just as a grit check, and it's always high intensity, and they don't understand how to do low intensity training correctly. I'm speaking from firsthand experience myself. I went into the Army as a young 20-year-old. I had a good endurance background. I loved moving outside, and I did a little cross country in high school. And that endurance helped me push through basic training, airborne school, and then SFAS. And then I became a Green Beret going through that whole pipeline. And I used that strong aerobic base that I had. I didn't understand what it was, and I didn't know how to actually do it the right way, endurance programming. But it's what carried me through. And I wish that I had somebody that had educated me on what I'm educating you right now, because it would have made the world of difference. Then shortly after I got to group, I was indoctrinated into the strength training culture. And the Army has used endurance as punishment, and it has built a poor psychological relationship with endurance, just treating it like as a grit gut check so much of the time. And after focusing on endurance and long distances and running and rucking throughout the Q course for so long, it was very easy for me to just kind of swing in the other way and just get in on this strength training culture. So I went all in. I got really into Olympic weightlifting, all sorts of weightlifting, and I put running and endurance on the side. And over the years, as I was in, I just lost my aerobic engine altogether. And I actually became really unhealthy at the same time. My blood pressure was high. I would get winded very easily. And eventually, I think that in just a high stress environment, but having unhealthy mitochondria due to just a poor aerobic engine was one of the things that just brought on a stress-induced autoimmune disorder on my first deployment that eventually kind of forced a medical retirement my way. So, how do we build an aerobic engine? That's why we're here today. A lot of people in the Army rationalize that they haven't had to move long distances, in combat or during deployments in a long time. They either take trucks or helicopters to where they need to go, and they do short bursts of high intensity, or short bursts of strength followed by short sprints, and then they're static for a long period of time. I'm going to teach you all of the benefits of the aerobic energy system, and I think that we could all learn something from how marathon runners train for aerobic endurance, and they do it by being masters of the low intensity training. So before we get into how to do low intensity training correctly, I'm going to go over some of the benefits that you might not know. The first one has to do with the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. This is what can create a lot of energy for endurance, for strength training, for all of the above. And it helps us increase the size and number of mitochondria. Low intensity training will. A lot more than high intensity. High intensity also will help with this, but only to a certain extent. You need low intensity, you need that volume in order to do it. And this is going to improve how much fat you can burn for energy, because that mitochondria just sucks up that fat cell and then it creates it into energy. Strong mitochondria also act as vacuums for lactic acid or lactate, which is produced when you burn carbs for energy, which is necessary the higher intensity you go. So burning more and more carbs for energy, then you feel a burn in your muscle, or your heart rate just gets really elevated when lactic acid builds up, and then you involuntarily slow down. So a strong, healthy mitochondria built with low intensity training can really help you just run at high intensity for longer. Low intensity training also just increases heart size and strength, which is what, pumps blood to the muscle. It also improves cardiovascular function, your arteries, your veins, all that, and the ability to just get blood to the cell, which is where oxygen is carried. It also improves cognitive function and hand-eye coordination under fatigue, even at high intensities, because you have less lactic acid that's building up, slowing you down and impairing your cognition. So those with a strong aerobic energy system are able to think more clearly during high intensity, and they're also able to have more hand-eye coordination, therefore improving shooting or any tactical or technical tasks when done under fatigue. And lastly, maybe most importantly, it improves your body's ability to recover from strength training, from bouts of high intensity, from bursts of speed, from anything. It helps you get your heart rate lower quickly. It helps you do more of those bouts without, just succumbing to fatigue. Let's take the PT test, for example. The new Army fitness test, has a lot more events, and those with a poor and weak aerobic energy system and they don't do low intensity are just absolutely exhausted after that sprint drag carry, and their 2-mile time just suffers because of it. So low intensity training can really help you recover from that sprint drag carry and finish strong on your 2-mile run. Low intensity training is very simple, but it just takes a lot of time to do it. You should be at a very low and easy intensity. Usually around 120 to 140 beats per minute is a safe heart rate range for most people. You should be able to breathe through your nose, not just thinking about like sucking wind through a straw and wanting to breathe through your mouth, but it should be relatively comfortable to breathe through your nose. And you should be able to go into autopilot and just relax during low intensity training. Or you should be able to speak 3-4 sentences normally before you have to take just a quick, short breath, quick pause in between sentences. So it's very conversational. Now this training is humbling. For beginners, it could be around your marathon pace to 30 seconds slower than your marathon pace. For intermediate athletes, it could be maybe 60, 90 seconds slower than your marathon pace. And for very advanced athletes, it's going to be 90, maybe even 2 minutes per mile slower than your marathon pace. So really, it boils down to this is an intensity that you could just hold for 3 to 4 hours, where your heart rate just stays level and you just are holding the same pace. So there's minimal heart rate drift, to where when you're running at a certain pace, your heart rate just drifts up. There's very minimal of that. Or when you're running at a certain heart rate, your pace does not drift down by very much. If you want to go scientific on it, usually about less than 3% drift is what we're shooting for, which you can get if you have the training software called Training Peaks, which is what I use with all my private coaching clients and with all the programs that I sell. So do it right, do it consistently, do it alongside a good performance-based strength training program. And you know what? If you're still around for the video, thank you for sticking around. Just like the video, please. It really helps my analytics and this channel grow more than you think. And it doesn't require anything of you. So until next time, I hope you enjoyed the video. Embrace the process.